Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Growth After Loss podcast. I'm Dr. Marquez, a personal growth educator after loss. And today, as you can see, we are not in my typical office or studio. We're actually in Washington, D.C. And today, we're going to be talking in today's episode about continuous bonds. How do we continue a relationship with our deceased loved ones? So, quick story is that me and my late husband had planned to come to DC 7 years ago. And unfortunately, he did not get to come with me. So part of me actually experiencing and continuing that bond with my loved one is continuing to fulfill those dreams and hopes that we had set out together. So as you can see, we are here in the DC area. And so today, in today's episode, again, we're going to be talking about how do we continue our relationship with our loved ones. So welcome to another episode.
So let me ask you this. Do you think you should continue to have a connection with your deceased loved one? And if so, what does that look like? After we experience the irrevocable death of someone we love, many of us struggle and wrestle with these questions. And depending on your background, religious beliefs, or even culture, these are questions you were maybe told not to think about and maybe to leave your deceased loved one alone and in peace. But what if I told you that these provocative questions are part of a common curiosity that many of us who have experienced the death of someone we love find ourselves thinking about? Before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you that the content in this show is for educational purposes only, and it is not meant to substitute support from a licensed mental health professional. And in that permanence of their physical absence, it can live in our life so loudly every single day. And that can distort our vision to even think about the possibility of having some sort of connection or relationship with them after they have passed. I know that at the end of the day, that is something we wish we could have back. We would love to continue to feel their warm embrace or listen to their jokes or even hear their thoughts on any particular matter. But we know that that is not humanly possible anymore. So today we will dive into part one of a three-part series where we will explore what continuing bonds are, why they are important, and what research says about them. I wanted to do a three-part series on this very important topic because learning about continuing bonds can be such a powerful thing in our adaptation process. It can help us learn to live life without having the physical presence of our loved ones being here with us. So, in part two, you and I will look at the tools that can actually help you cultivate continuing bonds. And in part three, we will go over how you can start integrating them into your own life. Let's start by looking at what the concept of continuing bonds is. The American Psychological Association defines continuing bonds as the emotional attachment that a bereaved person continues to maintain with the deceased long after the death. So, what does this mean? The continuing bond approach in grief is all about finding ways to keep the connection with our loved ones alive, even after they are gone. This method encourages us to integrate those memories and feelings into our everyday lives. This method differs from the belief held after Sigmund Freud's 1917 essay on mourning and melancholia, which stated that successful grieving requires the bereaved to completely detach emotionally from the deceased. So, this is a complete opposite of that. And as more research continues to evolve in the world of psychology, we're going to continue to understand different theories that can better support our adaptation for life after loss. So let's talk a little bit about this. For example, let's say that you lost a close friend who you loved hiking with. And instead of trying to not go on hikes anymore, you can actually decide to continue hiking in their memory. And each time that you hit those trails, you can think of the great times you had together and maybe even share stories about them with friends who join you. This way, you can carry that bond with you, honoring their memory while allowing yourself to integrate the reality of their physical absence in your life while still having a connection, just in a different way. It's a gentle reminder that it's okay to keep those feelings alive as part of your journey. Now, if you are thinking, should I really be doing this? Or won't this keep me stuck thinking about them? Let me tell you, my friend, you are not alone with these questions. In fact, many of those who I have worked with, including participants in my research study, talked about and shared how they had continuing bonds with their deceased loved ones and how helpful it was in their personal growth after loss. Engaging in a continuing bond with your deceased loved one can be profoundly important in your grieving process. And let me tell you why. Because instead of focusing on simply moving on or letting go, here in the Growth After Loss podcast and in my work, we focus on learning to integrate our loss into the fabric of our life. This helps us and allows us to transform this physical loss into a lasting internal resource. This approach offers comfort and a sense of continuity during a time that is very challenging in our lives. Continuing bonds enables you, it enables me to incorporate our loved ones' influence into our daily lives. You might find yourself pondering on what would my loved one do in this particular situation? Or you might honor their legacy by completing a project they started or practicing a hobby they shared with you. By keeping these connections alive, whether it's wearing their favorite watch, cooking their favorite meal, or like me, which by the way, it took me 7 years to actually make the trip to DC. But I decided to honor the memory and the love of my late husband by taking this trip and honoring that dream that we both had together. But unfortunately, we didn't get to realize this together. So I still took it upon myself to make it come true in the only way that I could. I don't have them here, right? You don't have your loved one here. This can also include having quiet conversations with your loved one or talking to them out loud, whatever works for you, because having a continuing bond with your deceased loved one helps create a meaningful bridge between the past, the present, and the future. This bridge can be crucial in helping you navigate the complexities of grief, making the journey feel more manageable and less isolating. From a research perspective, this shift in understanding began with the landmark 1996 study of continuing bonds, a new understanding of grief, which challenged the traditional idea that Freud had that successful mourning required detachment. So, studies now show that people who maintain healthy, internalized bonds with their deceased loved ones, such as seeking a deceased person's imagined guidance, frequently report higher levels of post traumatic growth and lower levels of depression. These bonds are particularly effective when they are adaptive, meaning the survivor finds comfort in the connection rather than feeling stuck in a state of constant yearning or longing for the deceased. So, to give you an example of what adaptive bonds are, this can be seen in the relationship between you and your deceased loved one. So, for instance, you might find a solace in recalling the warmth of their hugs and the laughter that you maybe shared during family gatherings, or the wisdom they imparted through cherished stories. So, rather than feeling overwhelmed just by the loss itself, these memories can become a source of comfort. They can become a shining light on the love that you still have for them in your heart. So, these memories in moments of difficulty, you can actually draw from these memories as a source of strength or inspiration from recalling a lesson you learned from them, or perhaps what they taught you about kindness or perseverance, or how they just simply enjoyed simple moments. You can feel supported by the love that was shared, honoring your loved one's legacy while continuing to move forward in your own life. Ultimately, this compassionate relationship with the memories that you have with your loved one can help nurture your adaptation and resilience, which can help turn that grief, that pain that you have into a profound appreciation for the bond that you once physically shared with your loved one. So, further psychological research highlights that this continuity helps preserve your sense of identity as it treats the relationship as something that evolves rather than something that simply ends. All right, my friend, we shared a lot today about continuing bonds. We talked about what they are, why they are important, and what research says about them. So please make sure that you subscribe to this channel and make sure that you continue to listen to part two and part three of Continuing Bonds so you can learn to help cultivate continuing bonds in your own life with your deceased loved ones. Remember that your loss matters and that you matter too, my friend. Thank you again for listening to the Growth After Loss podcast, and take care.